It's time to engage in cyber talk with the Chief of Cybersecurity.
Well, hello there. How you doing today?
Good morning. I'm absolutely wonderful. Nice to see you again.
All right, then. To all my listeners and audience of the Chief of Cybersecurity live streaming podcast, today is very special because as I have looked on LinkedIn, Facebook, and everywhere I can think of, there's always that discussion about the recruitment process.
Hmm.
How can I get a job? Or how can I do my resume? Or I have talked to 15 or 20 recruiters, but I have not got a job yet. So, Mrs. Deborah Fuller, MAYVEEN Consultant, is here today to break the ice. Deborah, how you doing? Again.
Absolutely wonderful. Wonderful again. Wonderful again. Glad to be here. Glad to share a little bit of knowledge, learn a little bit from you as well. And hopefully we can be of service to, a lot of people out there.
Well, I want to go back with a little history here of how you and I had met, and that was at TechNet
Yes,
Augusta.
absolutely.
And for the audience out there that don't know about TechNet Augusta, it is a showcase of all the best and the brightest technology for the Department of Defense that happens every year
Hmm.
in Augusta, Georgia. And you get a chance to network with different business professionals. But if you're trying to find a job or if you want to network for your career, it's a great place to go as well too, because about 65% of the defense contracting companies are there. It is a technology floor, and you get a
Absolutely.
chance to meet great people. And while I was there, Deborah and I met, and we were talking about cybersecurity and
Hmm.
also the hiring and the recruitment process. So, speaking of hiring and the recruitment process, um, give us a candidate background of how you came to be as you are today with MAYVEEN Consulting. And, that's a little secret I know you're going to share. And once you voice that secret, then I'll have something to say. All right.
Okay.
So, so go ahead and get us started.
Absolutely. Well, I actually got started as a headhunter um, over 25 years ago. And people who are employees now and have an employee mindset, listen to this story because this may be a transitioning point for you. This may be the secret sauce. I got to a point in my career working for Chase Manhattan Mortgage Division that I know that I needed more than what was given to me on a salary basis. I saw my skill set, my worth, my value. And so I needed to find out how can I monetize my skill set beyond an hourly or a salary. And I was looking in a newspaper, so I'm aging myself, Dewayne, newspaper for a new job. And it said, recruiter must be great at developing relationships over the telephone. So I said, okay, well, I don't know what a recruiter is, but I know I'm a communicator. I applied for the job, interviewed directly with the president of the company.
Hmm.
Um, I did the Wonderlic test, a management test, hired me on the spot. And I went through a 3-month training process and my life changed forever. It changed the trajectory of my life. So I got started in recruiting in the engineering space, accounting, forensics. And I was in love with recruiting because it allowed me the capability to take my skill set and go from making $20 an hour to 6 figures a year.
Wow. Now that's the secret.
That's the secret.
That is the secret sauce because as I go through LinkedIn and as I talk to a lot of career professionals that are trying to transition into cybersecurity or any type of industry,
Hmm.
that challenge is to find out how to build that roadmap. Okay.
Absolutely.
I am a college student. I am educated.
Hmm.
I have a college degree. What's next? And through that process, what I found out is that a lot of them do do have the motivation
Hmm.
and actually do have the drive.
Yes.
But it's just that one little piece that's missing just to put the icing on the cake. And that's where you come in here,
Hmm.
okay, to go and help these career professionals move through the industry. So what are some of the challenges that you've seen that the industry face and
Hmm.
that the career professionals face that if you could sit down with all of them now and say, hey,
Mm.
if you could do this a lot better, you could actually be more successful.
Absolutely. I mean, I love this conversation because I'm the person that's in the trenches with both sides, with the hiring managers, with the corporations, with the presidents, the CFOs, and then, with the professionals that are transitioning from college and looking to get into cybersecurity. Experienced professionals are looking to level up, and what's near and dear to our hearts, veterans who are transitioning out of the military into the corporate sector, or maybe want to work for a DoD contractor. So this is what I would say to the hiring managers and to the decision makers who are hiring these people. First of all, take your blinders off. Oftentimes, the first people to look at a resume are your sourcers and your recruiters. Now, because I'm a headhunter, I have a different level of skill sets in regards to finding talent, right? And so you never look at just what the resume says. The resume is just a snapshot of this individual. And so what I do is tell the hiring managers, take your blinders off. Just take a look and have a exploratory conversation with this individual. And then from there, you can go into a more in-depth, they call it behavioral-based interview, to find out if they are fit for this role based on just that snapshot we initially see. So most times, if they look at the resume and they don't see certain things as bullet points or highlighted, even once the basic skills are met, they'll bypass that resume, right? Now, for the other side, for the recruiters and the sourcers, same thing applies. Take your blinders off, right? Give a resume more than your first 60 or 90 seconds, which is common. They look at it for 60 or 90 seconds. Boom, on to the next one. And so, yeah, go ahead. Interject.
You know what? You brought up two major discussion points. One is about veterans, and two is about taking those blinders off. Here's kind of the way I kind of look at the blinders, because me as a person is always thinking, after you get through with the resume, why don't you just do a work interview, right? Because in the cybersecurity world, it is based on your skill sets, right? Because it's so many different type of how could I say, on a cybersecurity professional resume, all the skill sets, from different areas of cybersecurity, and most people will probably meet 75 or 80% of that. Well, you can get that every day. But the transition is, can they do the job?
Absolutely.
This is where I always believe that a work interview works. Okay, you get them 5 tasks, and you put them on the computer, just as if they was working on the job, and have them to demonstrate their skill sets. Because there are some people that are great at job interviewing, great and fantastic, but it's a sales pitch.
That's right.
Okay. Right. And there are some people that are not good at job interviews, but you know what? They can do the job.
They can knock it out the park.
Right. So there has to be some type of balance effect that happens. Right. And I've always believed in that. Secondly is veterans. Here's my take on veterans.
Yes.
When it comes to cybersecurity, and I make this statement because I'm a veteran too. Military veterans have a great advantage when it comes to cybersecurity because military veterans learn combat warfare.
That's right.
And combat warfare and cyber security and cyber warfare are married and best friends.
Yes, they are.
As we look at the industry now and looking at some of the world events that are happening with the cyber attacks, most of the hackers, and if not all of them, are using cyber warfare.
Yes.
Because the first stage of like combat warfare was to deploy missiles and to use artillery systems to destruct a country's infrastructure. And that infrastructure is your telecommunications equipment, your chemical plants, and your utility plants. But now all of those systems are IT based.
That's right.
So with a push of a button, you can carry out digital destruction. So military veterans now are at an advantage because they learn secrecy, because they learn how to protect data.
Yes.
Most, if not all, military veterans are involved with intel. Okay, and the last one is operational resilience, because I know in the Navy, we were always taught that if something happened to the ship, then what is your backup plan?
That's right.
Right. So I always like to make that statement because veterans have a unique advantage.
Absolutely.
Have you had the opportunity to deal with a multiple pool of veterans?
That's all I basically deal with.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And I work in the corporate sector as well from a recruiting, perspective. MAYVEEN is a recruiting and staffing firm, but my specialty is veterans with security clearance in the cybersecurity, counterterrorism, SATCOM, infrastructure space globally. And so the best talent comes from transitioning veterans. And what I found is they really don't understand their worth when they're transitioning out. They have no idea that the money that they made in the military for their skill set triples almost when they come.
I was
Right? And
I
so
was guilty.
when I'm at job fairs, I was sitting with a general. To give an example, he had a one-page resume. I was like, General, where? He said, well, the young lady at the transition center told me that in today that all I need is, I said, General, I need your whole story. Because I'm going to present you to clients that want to know from beginning to end how you have impact in their corporate structures, or if it's a DoD subcontractor. And so for me, it's educating the men and women who have served their country, their value once they transition out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
veterans are a key supply for me in regards to providing the top tier talent. And as you said, there's some factors that comes along with the veteran, that understanding privacy and secrecy component, having those security clearances, that opens so many doors for them. And so my goal is not only to usher them into companies, but also help them understand your value through telling their story via their resume.
I could sit here with you and talk about this for 3 hours.
Yes.
Okay. And I think that it'll be doable after here. Just, and I'm going to pitch it out there now. Is in the future, you and I have a long discussion about veterans and their transition process.
Absolutely.
Because I, as a veteran, was guilty of a lot of that information that you just discussed, because I went to a TAP class and I was told to have a one-page resume. I was told that I should take a pay cut. Okay. Okay. Well, you need to take a pay cut. And I found out that a lot of the employers were asking question was that, are you retired military? So they can, lowball you.
That's
Right.
right.
And I remember that I went on a job interview. And I think that when I was talking to the two interviewers,
Mm-hmm.
I said that I was a retired military veteran. Then they asked me, okay, what's your targeted salary range? Right. And I gave them the target salary
You had no
range.
idea really what you should say, probably.
Right. No, I didn't know. So they kind of looked at me strange. And for some reason, I had a feeling that I wasn't going to get the job, because I said, well, I don't know what I did wrong. But back to the conversation here,
Mm-hmm.
is that a lot of military veterans are strapped with a lot of knowledge that is not true, because it seems to be the form of knowledge that passed from one generation to the next, right? Let's say, for instance, if they meet somebody else that have retired out the military and that person was given some inaccurate information, then they
Mm-hmm.
usually pass that down to the next person,
Absolutely.
right? So what happens is that a lot of military veterans, as you just stated,
Mm-hmm.
are short on their value,
Yeah.
right? Because I've always believed that in the military, you actually have so many skill sets. Because I know when I was in the Navy, I was actually a part of training.
Mm-hmm.
I actually did also too with a career development process. I was involved with technology,
Yep.
okay, and I was a janitor.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking that too in my head.
Mhm.
When I served, I had both, and most importantly, they really loved my janitorial skills. and so I can agree with that.
Okay, so you were in the Army, right?
Yes, communications equipment operator, SATCOM. Yeah.
SATCOM. Okay, then how was that career field for you?
Well, when I joined, when my recruiter said, "Okay, great, you scored high on your ASVAB, so you could choose these things," and I chose communication equipment operator because I thought I'd be in an office somewhere in a building, doing the communications equipment and plugging in here. like I saw on TV, right? Little did
Mhm.
I know I'd be in the field setting up telephone lines.
Wow.
You know,
That was kind of my first job when I got out the Navy. I was pulling cables,
yeah.
for a networking company. And I remember one of the individuals on the project
Hmm.
was telling the supervisor that I was not going to be there that long. He was like, "It's something special about him. He's not going to be here pulling cables for the next 25 years."
And you was thinking that to yourself too, I bet.
Yeah, kind of, because I was kind of just finding my way through
I
and
got it.
trying to figure out exactly what is it that I wanted to do.
Hmm.
But just like myself, I'm pretty sure there's millions of people or candidates that fall in that same category now that are trying to figure out what is my next step. I am stuck. I don't
Yeah.
particularly know where to go. Let's say, for instance, if you have to build a roadmap, right?
Hmm.
Let's say, for instance, we have a college student here, and the college student has majored in technology,
Hmm.
and that college student now wants to transition out into the public sector,
Hmm.
or or just the private sector.
Yeah.
Give me a quick roadmap of what that person can do to make themselves successful.
Right. I always tell people if it's a college student, hopefully they've established relationships. But let's just say they have no idea, Miss Fuller, like, where do I go from here? You have your degree in technology, right?
Hmm.
You've done no internships because no one told you the value of doing internships, right, while you're in college.
Uh-huh.
you know, Paid internships at that. No one's told you the value of that. So I would take a look at their resume, take a look at their relationships during college, maybe some volunteer work they did, and let's establish. I become kind of like the PR for candidates. I become your public relations person. We're going to brand you in a way that creates value for you beyond your college degree. Let's talk about some of your skill sets. You talked
Uh-huh.
about we all have more than just one primary. We all have more than a primary skill set. We have oftentimes 3 or 4 skill sets. So,
Hmm.
college student, let's talk about the things you've done during college, maybe where you volunteered at, maybe what organizations you're a part of. What type of work did you do in your church? What type of part-time work did you do? So I'll take all those things and then we'll create the new you, the brand that we're going to present to the employer, right? And that brand is represented on the resume. So the roadmap is to hopefully meet someone like me. But if you can't, listen to this carefully. You want to take everything you've done in your life from from the first year of college to the 4th year of college or 8th, whatever you're going to school for, and those are real life world experiences that can be translated to experience on your resume. It's about how you position that experience on your resume as far as capabilities and skill sets, if you will. So you start
Right.
there.
You know, I want to go back on resumes for a minute because I am a person that remember when I first got in the military, I was like updating my resume every day. And because I kept seeing different jobs and all of these different type of skill sets requirements, right?
Mhm,
And I just kept doing my resume over and over and over and over again. And I will say that prior to me branching into business and probably, doing a lot of cybersecurity work,
mhm.
if I had to take a track from the time I retired out of the Navy up until now, how many times did I change my resume? I would probably come up with the number 2000. Okay, it's just that way. But I will say the benefit out of that was that I learned how to do resumes.
That's right.
Like I learned how to do resumes. But there are candidates out there now that are probably saying, okay, I find this agency that's going to pay me 15, well, agency that, hey, I need to spend $2,000 to go get my resume done. All right. Now, I'm not a component of $2,000, but I think that was an easier process.
Mhm.
Now, judging by that statement I just made, what type of advice can you give to that candidate so that they can save their $2,000?
Um, Find a headhunting firm like myself that would
Mm-hmm.
do it for $2.99. Number one,
Mm-hmm.
revamp your resume, create maybe multiple resumes based on the type of jobs you're going to apply for. Number two, use technology in your favor, like I did and like you did. And I looked at resumes similar to jobs that I wanted to apply for based on my experience, right? And I learned how to really get great, not good, but great at creating a resume that sells, because you're pretty much selling yourself, human capital, right? And the next step would be actually using technology from a AI perspective, right? Now you have Chat GPT, you have all these different, a whole list of technology AI platforms that will help you create the words, the verbiage that sell to the eyes of a recruiter, a sourcer, and a hiring manager. Right?
Right. Okay. So that's very good information. So let's say that candidate A has done everything you just said,
Mm-hmm.
and candidate A is on the process of branding and marketing. Now, I know that there are social media platforms everywhere because you have LinkedIn, Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
uh, you have YouTube, Twitter, uh, TikTok, but I don't know for how long. So,
Hopefully not
so
long.
right. So you think about the fact that I've seen people that probably make videos and
Mm,
they put those videos on LinkedIn and they put it on Facebook.
yes,
And I know that LinkedIn, to me, as far as a professional view, is a great place to network. Uh,
absolutely.
all right. So there's a lot of branding that has to happen, and there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of networking that has to happen.
Yes,
Certain people are not really good at branding and networking because they're not sociable, right? Because see, they're quiet people.
yes,
Because you can put them in a setting with a group of people that's sitting at the table, and the overall purpose is to network yourself. And the only thing you're going to learn is their name.
that's it.
Okay, name. So based on branding and networking, what are some of the the key or secret tips that you can give to the listeners out there so they can brand and network their resumes and also themselves from a presentation point of view, from
Mm-hmm.
the way that they communicate, or just overall uh, being personal when it comes to branding and marketing
Mm.
themselves.
Yeah, it's really kind of I don't know the proper word to use. It's unfortunate that professionally in college or in life, we're not taught the very basic skill of understanding how to brag on yourself effectively. I taught that to novice, to pharmaceutical professionals when going to apply for pharmaceutical sales jobs. When I was preparing them for their interviews, you have to be good and great, actually great at bragging on yourself just a little bit. You don't want to cross the line of being facetious, of course, but it's nothing wrong with bragging on the facts. And so, if you're able to talk about the facts about what you do via a story, that starts the process. That opens up the door. That breaks the ice. Because when they ask you, so tell me a little bit about yourself, Dewayne, you should have your 60-second commercial already pre-programmed in your head, right? And
Right,
that's the first thing I would tell people. Have your 60-second commercial ready, and then use the platform like LinkedIn. I prefer LinkedIn as the best method because that's where employers go. They go to LinkedIn to see, let me see if what you're doing on LinkedIn, your post. If you're afraid of speaking and don't want to do videos, your posts create value for you right there. What type of messages are you talking about? What type of information are you posting on your as a subject matter expert in your industry or as a newcomer in your industry? College students don't even know that LinkedIn is the place to go. I could tell, especially HBCU college students, where I spend a lot of my time. So they need to know that LinkedIn is a platform that's going to probably allow me to either have a epiphany and start my own business, or my next employer is probably going to be on LinkedIn, and that's where I can find him. So that's where I would start right there.
wow, you brought up some more interesting facts there. This past Thursday, uh, on the on the 23rd of the month, I
Mm-hmm.
was on a panel interview for a nonprofit organization called HBCU Heroes,
Mm-hmm.
and so the title was Financial Literacy, going to secure the bag. So on that panel interview, I was given a discussion about branding marketing for like North Carolina A&T University. So what HBCU Heroes do is that they really travel around to different HBCUs and try to voice the message and try to help the college students get funding.
Right.
And what I learned most by actually being on that panel was that there a need. There's a need for
Yeah.
someone to voice. And I get passionate, especially about these kind of topics,
Me too.
because when I was in the military, and I take this from the Navy perspective, if you're in a position to make change, then it's your duty. So I still kind of have that military persona, duty on the inside of me. And I'm gonna share this with the listeners and you, and also you. Still to the day, certain members of my family call me chief. I when I retired out the military, I thought that everyone would resort to just Dewayne.
Yeah.
But a friend of mine said that that's just the way life goes.
Yeah.
He said that the Navy always gonna be a part of you.
Yeah.
Now speaking of markets and branding and making a person a brand as part of themselves, when it comes to that elevator pitch, for that 60 seconds elevator pitch, I, as a person, practice as well, because when I first wrote my book, The Cybersecurity Mindset, I used to walk around the house with a script, right?
Yep.
And wondering, okay, if I'm caught in the elevator, if it's somebody famous, let's say if it was Barack Obama and he's in the elevator and he said, I like that book, and we're starting on the 19th floor. So we're going down to the 15th floor, and it only takes 60 seconds. What's my pitch?
That's
What
right.
I did was I used to write things down on paper. But after a while, I got accustomed to doing the script, and it was firsthand knowledge.
That's right.
So what I always believe in that 60 seconds, that's your moment of fame. All right. It is your moment of fame. What I do part-time too, especially about every other month, is that I help teach a CompTIA fundamentals course, right? And it's a nonprofit organization called Diversity Cyber Council, right? And one of my friends that actually leads the organization, Mr. Oda Gray, is doing really good with the organization and moving it forward here in the city of Atlanta. Is the first ever cybersecurity apprenticeship program that was built. Oh yeah, first and ever. One of these days, all three of us going to have a talk together.
Sooner than later.
Excellent, Dan. So I told students in the class, I said, listen, I said that if you want to get hired, I said that you need to think about that 60 seconds that you have in an elevator, because it could be a recruiter standing next to you with a sheet of paper just talking out loud. Why is it that I keep needing to have these job interviews? Because I don't want to have all these job interviews. I just want to be able to talk to somebody for 60 seconds and be convinced that I can hire them. And I told the students, I said, you may be in that situation.
That's right.
So when you get your certification, go back home and practice that elevator speech, because that elevator speech works well because a lot of us use it in public. Let's say, for instance, if someone is at public somewhere, and let's say you're about ready to cook a Thanksgiving meal, and you don't know that person that is standing next to you that have all the ingredients in their cart. Within 60 seconds, they can explain to you how to put everything together so that you can cook that famous meal.
That's right.
So everybody has it inside of them.
They do.
I practice. I practice that script, but now I don't have the script. I'm kind of used to just talking.
Yeah, it's not even a script now. It just is, and that's what you want it to be. It just is. And backtracking a little bit, you know how your family calls you chief. My sister is actually in the military, still Army. She's retiring soon, but she was like, "Who made you the family manager?" And so now, my title, my mom lovingly calls me the family manager, and the
Uh-huh.
family, everybody, from my brother as an ex-Marine,
Uh-huh.
military family. So I can relate to that title sticking with you because you carry yourself, if you serve the military properly, I should say,
Uh-huh.
properly, that's those things you learned intuitively are going to be there forever. So, we just get used to that leadership role in our families and our life, right?
Right. Okay. Yes. Excellent. So let's just imagine that the candidate now has been successful at branding, and now it's time to do that job interview.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. This is where I think a lot of people really kind of get stuck, right? Because they go and find questions to answer, and then there are certain people that will ask you questions that are more conversational,
Yes.
and there's certain people that ask you questions based on your resumes, and certain people that ask you questions based on the career field.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a solid way to prepare?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. When when I was working as an employee looking for opportunities, and okay, listen, Miss Fuller, we have you scheduled for an interview on such and such date. You're interviewing with this company. You'll be interviewing with these two hiring managers, maybe three. So my job, right? Because I believe looking for a job is a job. I tell people who are looking for a job, it has to become your job to find a job. And then if that means preparing and looking for 8 hours throughout the day, that's what you do. And so you immediately go and look up the company that you're going to be working for, look at their corporate culture, look at, do they have corporate social responsibility? What type of programs do they serve the community? You look at all this, learn the fabric of the company, take a look at the CEO and what is his story even, right? And then I go to LinkedIn and I look up every single person that I'm going to be interviewing with. I look at what common ground we have. I look at their background and experience. How long have they been with the company? Because guess what? Now there's going to be a certain point where they ask you, do you have any questions? And guess what? Absolutely, I do. And so now I'm going to start interviewing the interviewers.
Wow. There's a lot of people who are saying that their LinkedIn profile is always being watched, but I like to make make note that it's about branding and selling yourself.
Yes.
Because we live in a digital age now where you can't hide who you are because social media is openly and available to everyone. It's just part of the new age of technology and the
Mhm,
new age of the workforce development programs
mhm,
that are happening. So let's imagine that the candidate now has finished the interview process,
mhm.
uh, and the candidate is waiting to
Yes.
actually get hired. Now, there are certain people that will call recruiters back and see if they can get information.
Mhm.
And then, the recruiter will call them back
Yeah.
and say, hey, well, they want to know um, what's your what's your salary range. Now, see, because a lot of times someone may kind of give a salary range that does not work in the budget because a lot of people wonder what is the salary range that I need to
Mhm.
specify. All right.
Yeah.
That can be kind of touchy because you don't want to lowball yourself,
Mhm.
right? And secondly, is that you do want to get hired, but you want to get hired for what you're worth. How can someone really kind of
Mhm.
position themselves, or what should they state, especially
Yeah.
about the salary range?
Right. There's a couple things you want to take into consideration. This is a touchy subject for people. Even for me, it was because what I would do is this is what I suggest a person does. Right. First of all,
Mhm.
before the interview who you're going to be interviewing with. So go to Glassdoor and take a look at what the typical salary range is for that position in that particular company. That's one thing you can do, right?
Mhm.
Take a look at you can even go onto salary.com and take a look at for this type of role that I'm going to be performing with my type of experience in the state of Georgia, in the city of Atlanta, what does that role typically pay, right? So let's just say you're coming from a previous company and now you're going to a new company. If you were working at this previous company making say 90,000, don't go to a new company and make the same salary. That's crazy. You should
Mhm.
expect comparably to get 10 to 15% more than what you were making at the previous company. But By law, you do not have to say a number.
Wow.
You could say, well, I really don't want to put a number out there, but I do expect to get paid what's comparable for my role, my experience in this type of position.
Can you repeat that again? Because I think that is at most important.
By law, you do not have to say a number, but what you can say is, you can say, I expected that question because to come around, but I do expect to get paid what's comparable in the industry for my experience, my knowledge in this specific industry.
Wow. It's always.
Oh, okay. So we got someone who knows what they're talking about. You might just be throwing it out there for the first time, but say it.
Hey, what is so interesting about a lot of the interviews is that I take information
Mm-hmm.
from people, and I'm pretty sure the audience and listeners are pretty much going to be taking some information as well too, because this is a first. All right, this is the first time I've actually heard it, and I'm pretty sure it's probably going to be the first that many of other people are probably going to hear this as well. And this is great information. And as I said before, as I sit here and have this discussion, we can pick 3, maybe 4 areas,
Oh yeah,
and we can talk about it all day long.
you could.
All day long. You and I can talk all day long. Now, speaking of me, I like to talk.
Me
All
too.
right, that's ever since I was a kid, I was talking. I was a tattletale. So when I came through this industry, and when I started to think about my motto for speaking, I came up with the word cyber talk, because cyber talk is about talking about cybersecurity, but making it simple,
Mm-hmm.
making it as simple as possible, but also too trying to come up with some roadmaps, because that's one of the problems I've seen in cybersecurity, is that it's seen as being very difficult. And now
Mm-hmm.
even the candidates that are transitioning into cybersecurity are saying that, well, how do I position myself to become a great candidate in this world of cybersecurity?
Mm-hmm.
So they struggle because of the fact is that they've been told that cybersecurity is difficult.
Yeah.
See, this goes back to that research and learning and branding.
Mm-hmm.
Now back onto the topic here. So let's imagine that the candidate has been hired. All right. Now the candidate is on the job.
Right.
One of the things I always like to talk to all the career professionals about, they're trying to develop that individual development plan.
Mm-hmm.
The IDP,
Right.
because those IDPs are really good because it sets you up for 3, 5, or 7 years in the
Mm-hmm.
industry. All
Mm-hmm.
right. So from a high level, can you identify some of those things that candidates should have in their individual development plan to make themselves successful? And also too, when they're hired on the job, what type of, I guess, practices they should be looking at so that they can be successful on the job? Because when you get a job, you want to be there for a bit. Like, you don't want to be changing jobs only if your skill sets grow and
Right.
you decide that you want better pay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, high level, I always tell people in any industry, but specifically cybersecurity, once again, it starts with knowing your worth once you're in there.
Uh-huh.
The cybersecurity industry is a very competitive industry, very competitive as far as talent is concerned. So you have a leg up, whether or not you want to believe it or not, as a candidate in cybersecurity, be it a brand new, especially ones with experience. Always be learning. In other words, always be in a position where you're getting certifications, staying abreast of new certifications. What's the value? What's the next level for me? Never settle for where you are, because the company is watching you, and most companies will actually pay for those additional certifications once you're in the door. They want you to be the best of the best in what you do. And so take advantage of the opportunity to level up your certifications in cybersecurity, whatever's the latest and greatest and new on the block. Don't wait to get it. Oh, well, I lost my job. I guess I better get a new certification. No, You get that certification while you're there. It creates value internally for them. And then if something happens, like a layoff, which quite a few companies are laying off across the globe, right? And if you get fired even, you never know. Now you're strapped with these certifications that's going to set you apart and set you up for continued success. So always be learning is probably the main thing I would say, if nothing else.
See, that goes back to this other topic that I have in my book, which is chapter 17 about the value proposition mentality, right?
Mm-hmm.
And actually knowing that when you get those certifications, you add worth to yourself and you add a lot of worth to your company. Because looking at a value proposition model, if you look at the candidate that actually helps the company out, because now the company can actually have bragging rights when they go and talk to their customers. In this government contracting space, that is where it operates, because the government contracting space is about, okay, I want to see your candidates. What type of candidates do you have? Well, all of my candidates have a CISSP certification, but they have a PMP and so forth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because when you write those proposals, you're gonna have to find your candidates and you got to put their resumes on the inside of the
Yes.
proposal so that you can show your staffing plan. Now,
Mm-hmm.
part of that effort is that you have to have the best and the brightest of people. So the value proposition that actually goes along with that is that as that company brands and get the best talents, they can win more business.
Mm-hmm.
And as they win more business and as they establish those relationships with the
Yes.
customers, they
Yes.
become a high value asset. All
That's
right.
it.
Once you become that high value assets, companies are going to call you up as your company.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. Let's just say that the clients are going to call up the company
Mm-hmm.
and actually tell the company, hey, we want to keep you around.
Yeah.
So if the company stays around, the candidate stays around, the candidate gets better pay,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just a balancing approach that works all the way across the board for everyone,
It's a win-win.
right? And I make that statement because in my book, The Cybersecurity Mindset, that chapter 17, which actually goes into talking about business transformation and how you transform businesses and looking at the value proposition uh, mentality that you have in place, looking at your workforce monetization as well too,
Mm-hmm.
because the workforce is now are changing
Yeah.
a lot, right? And it's so many things that are making it change, and part of that is because cybersecurity is growing, but also too, the talent acquisition systems, and the way that the recruiters have to now work to find candidates. Looking at artificial intelligence platforms are coming on board now,
Yeah.
and these artificial intelligence platforms are using like the ATS system just to go and to find that right candidate.
Right.
So the buzzword means a whole lot. Wow. Deborah, this is a lot to talk about. You
Yeah.
and I are going to have a future discussion and break
Break it
some of
down.
the topics down, and definitely want you to come back again. Now, how can people find you? Where can they find you at? Because I'm going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I created that, and I believe that is the site to your business website
Yep.
contact there.
Yep.
So
It
that's
is.
the right place.
That's right.
Okay, so I got it right. So I wanted to at least put that scroll bar across the day so that
Mm-hmm.
everyone can find you, so they know exactly who you are.
Mm-hmm.
But I tell you what, are there any last minute thoughts that you want to share?
Absolutely. You could also Google me, by the way, Deborah E. Fuller, the full name, and my LinkedIn will pop up right away. And that's another thing in branding yourself. Make sure that you're optimizing your full name. And if there are lots of names out there
Mhm.
like yours, use your middle initial to separate yourself from the others when optimizing your name. And so I chose to put my middle initial there so that now I'm separate from the other Deborah Fullers, right? But I think the last thing I want to say is when you come across individuals like yourself, subject matter experts, or come across someone like me on LinkedIn, send a quick message out. Oftentimes people will lend a word of encouragement to you, or one golden nugget of advice that can really steer you in the right direction. So don't be afraid to reach out to individuals, to leaders in the industry, to where you want to be, and ask, would you mind, giving me a lead in the right direction? That's it.
Wow.
Don't be afraid to ask for a lead in the right direction. If you don't know where you are, where to go, how to get there, ask for a lead in the right direction. Now, I learned this from watching my dad not asking the right directions when we were traveling on the road. And it was my mom who said, wait a minute, we got to ask for the right direction, right? So always ask for a lead in the right direction. When you're stagnant, don't know which way to go, do not be there too long. All you have to just open your mouth and ask for a lead in the right direction.
All right. Well, you heard it again, audience. Mrs. Deborah Fuller. Let me get that name right. Deborah Fuller is here today, and she's going to be back again. If you have not purchased your copy of the Cybersecurity Mindset, do so. You stay close to YouTube, LinkedIn, and let's make sure that we build the next talent for the next wave. All right, then. So you take care, Deborah. All right.
Thank you so much for having me.
You've been listening to the Chief of Cybersecurity Livestream. Please join the YouTube channel and purchase your copy of the Cybersecurity Mindset.